Please welcome to Streaming for Vengeance, Mr. Tomas Lindberg from At the Gates. You're looking great. You're sounding great. How are you doing?
It's super hot here in Sweden. So yeah, melting away, but all good, all good.
I hear you. It's heat wave central, and we both live in the great white norths of the world, right?
Yeah. So we're not really used to this.
No, not at all. Back in 2014, I remember sitting on the grass listening to At War with Reality, and here we are with reunion album number 3. And wow, this must be feeling good, restarting this machine.
Yeah, it's actually been for us a good year, weirdly enough, because we were having that writing and recording phase anyway. You know what I mean? We could just do it more, so to say, go into the details more, more complex song arranging, stuff like that. We can work on the songs more, which was good for us.
So yeah, when the whole world was going mad and I couldn't travel anywhere, you were stuck in a room where you were probably going to be stuck in anyways, being the most productive you could ever be.
Yeah, and then probably being more productive because of that, because the frustration has to be vented somewhere, and this became our little escape bubble, from the whole crazy world shit. We could go into that bubble and the world didn't exist. So that was great for us.
Well, we'll just save for a moment getting deep into the actual music. Multiple studios, it was like these COVID creations, as you say. You worked in a bunch of areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of artists will say this, that their records or albums have been like almost benefited from it in a way. They could go deeper into what they are as a band. Where can we take this? Be more creative, be more exploring, I guess. And for us, of course, this album had to be recorded in multiple studios because of different instrumentations. Different instruments require different rooms, different technicians, and stuff like that. So it was a huge logistic project as well.
It takes a lot of confidence for any band, especially an older band, to be able to truly stretch out. There's a lot of bands that are they paint themselves in a corner and they just sit there. But this is an example of this legendary act and just doing whatever the hell they want to do. And that takes someone with a lot of confidence.
I think our confidence was, it peaked with, the kind of success of doing At War with Reality, that we kind of, after such a long time, managed to come back and do an album that people appreciated. After that, it felt like, but if we can do that, then we can do anything. Kind of, felt like, metal Superman.
Well, we're probably about the same age, so don't take this as a disrespectful comment, but you almost can look in the mirror and say, I'm fucking old and I can do whatever the hell I want. Also
that, in a way, yeah. I mean, because we know what we're doing, we know what we're trying to achieve. Of course, it would be stupid to think that everybody understands that, but I really think that At the Gates has a listener base that are as curious as we are. They want to be challenged by a new At the Gates record, and I think people have kind of given up on the idea of another Slaughter of the Soul now. So they are more like, where will they take us next time? And we couldn't do Slaughter of the Soul Part 2 and be honest about it.
Right. So this new album, it's daring, it's devastating, it's really epic. And I love one of the quotes you said, cinematic. And I'm watching the roll of the videos. It was also in your favor to be locked in and be creative with all these videos. But that whole cinematic thing is like, wow. Yeah, because it did take me somewhere else. A lot different than Slaughter to the Soul did.
Yeah, I mean, we really talked about it, me and Jonas, where we saw this album going. And I just, basically what you see on the cover, that's what I saw also musically and lyrically. I saw that other world. And I wanted people to be able to fully immerse themselves in that, especially, during isolation. You need some kind of emotional escape as well, you know, and I think that's what I wanted to give people, you know, and because I wanted that myself to have an album that could transport you somewhere else.
And I thought another interesting comment was the whole one-dimensional thing. Whenever I was listening to Slaughter to the Soul, I'm like, yeah, this is, I never really thought of it as one-dimensional. And when you put it like that, yeah, I guess it is. But all Back in Black was one-dimensional too.
No, yeah, I mean, and a lot of classic albums are, you know, and that's fine, you know, that's no problem. But I think that kind of symbolizes the end of the first era of the band, because we compressed, like, we started the compressing of the songs already on with Fear, Kiss the Burning Darkness, then on Terminal Spirit Disease, and finally on Slaughter of the Soul. But there was nowhere really we could take that further. We couldn't compress it more, you know what I mean? That was a really cool thing for us to succeed with, in a way. Doing that, like going from really experimental, weird 50 riffs a song kind of band to those 2.5 minutes, 3 riff kind of songs, you know. But where would you take it after that? There's really nowhere to go, you know.
What were the discussions around like the varied instrumentation that I hear on this album? A lot of wind instruments. It was wow, when you heard them, it kind of took you back a little bit.
Well, I mean, we had some on To Drink from the Night itself as well. And I loved what Jonas was doing with that. But I can hear, you know, like, this is just him starting out, feeling, you know, can we do this? Can we incorporate this? And I told him, like, why, you know, go all the way, you know, just experiment, feel free, just hit me with as much as possible. And yeah, it was amazing. I mean, he has grown so much as a songwriter. It's outstanding. I'm really in awe when I think about, you know, the stuff he now is able to do, you know, write all that stuff and write it down, show it to the musician. You know, I can't even dream of being that, you know, gifted. So it's really cool. I really want him to enjoy it, you know, and he did. And I think it works really well because you have that, like the neoclassical kind of attitude, but at the same time you have the free form, more progressive parts as well. And when they add so much to the dynamics of the record, you know, in between the more crushing death metal that you hear also on the record.
I truly think the extreme bands in our scene, bands like Dimmu Borgir, Emperor, Enslaved, like that, it really, to me, when I listen to it, it's the true progressive music. Maybe even more progressive than what Dream Theater is doing, for example. And you guys are doing, like, you just jumped into that pot. So how would you define the word progressive when it comes to At the Gates?
I think, you know, like we had the idea from the very first, you know, meeting back in 1990, you know, and I think that comes from me and Alf at that point came from Grotesque, who kind of painted ourselves in a corner a little bit. You know, we couldn't go any further with that. Like the satanic death metal, that was like, you couldn't do anymore. You could do more of the same, but you couldn't explore more stuff. So it was a very confined environment. So when we started At the Gates, we wanted like the no barriers kind of thing. Everything goes. But it's only now where we are capable of trying these things, because we didn't have the know-how back then. We tried, but you know, we were not capable as musicians, which probably sounds cool in a way. You know, like some of those early albums are experimental on the verge of collapse, but now we can do it, you know, with some kind of knowledge about what we're doing, basically.
There's two songs that stick out in particular, Garden of Cyrus and Fall into Time. And maybe don't take this as bias because where I'm sitting and where the band is from, I hear two different eras of Rush in both those songs. I hear 70s Rush and obviously a little bit of Pink Floyd in the Garden. And then I'm like, it sounds like 2000s Rush in Fall into Time. And maybe I'm putting a microscope really, but like, how did Neil Peart's death affect you guys? Adrian, particularly, am I off my rocker putting in a Rush reference?
No. Russia's always been there for us, of course, together with a lot of other, progressive giants like King Crimson and bands like that. Of course, it was very sad with the passing. So that's, it was some really sad days. I listened to Rush yesterday on high volume here, so they're always there, and I know that Jonas is a big fan as well. So I wouldn't say that's wrong at all. To quote them as an influence here, definitely.
Let's talk about these videos and getting into that zone of creativity and working with Patrick and everything. Talk to me about all these visuals.
Well, when Patrick and me work together, I know exactly like what he can do. He can do basically anything. He's so talented, and you can make everything look expensive and big,
For nothing.
Yeah, for nothing. Oh, for almost nothing. And but I really wanted him to be on board with like the whole concept of the record and the concept of the music and the lyrics. So we had some meetings talking about it and like what we could do. And I also told him like, I want to try to have as much as real, so to say, effects as possible, not like added on in post-production. And there was a lot of experimentation with that as well. We were very dirty in one of the videos, for example, and looking into like this projector a lot of times with like stuff being projected on our faces, but it was like real. I like that. And Patrick has a very good sense of, listening to the band when he does the videos, So I'm really happy how we made it look so big, and as you say, like it comes with a cinematic idea as well. I'm very happy with how those 3 videos came out, and then of course working with Costin again for an animated video of the Fall Into Time was really cool, because then I basically didn't give him anything there. He just had the song and the lyrics, and that's his interpretation. I love that, to have another artist free interpretation of your music,
Right. Now, there must be a million ideas dancing around in your head to present this to the public, since we can finally watch live shows again.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. For example, the more symphonic parts, those could be presented in a normal death metal setting as backing tracks for intros and stuff like that. That works. Of course, there are ideas of performing it with a full, not full orchestra, but the parts that we need of the orchestra at some point. That would be really cool. I think a song like Garden of Cyrus, that requires that Anders, the saxophone player, is there on the show, because you can't have a saxophone on backing track. That doesn't work. Right. So that song will be saved for special occasions where he can travel with us, for sure. Okay. But I'm looking forward to it, because there's a lot of, as you say, majestic parts on this record that I see a lot of cool lights, for example, being used in certain more special ways than we have done before, to give that feeling of the album, even on the live stage, so to say.
Do you think, is it a possibility that this could be performed live, like one special show with all the instrumentation, closer to home, obviously?
Yeah, definitely. We've been talking about that to like when everything opens up. But then, in one way, we need to know that everything opens up before we plan such an event, because with the logistics and everything, I mean, it needs to work, Right. But of course, it would be cool to do it here in Sweden, but also maybe try to do one on each of the continents as well, so to say.
Today, where you sit and stand, what's the landscape in terms of COVID and booking shows? Like, what does your gut say? What is the government saying? Is it becoming brighter?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually preparing for playing our first show post-COVID in August in Belgium. We have a festival booked mid-August, and we're right now looking at all the different rules and regulations to make it happen. I think the general vibe here in Europe is like you need to have your second shot at least 2 weeks before Otherwise, you have to have a PCR test or something like that. I will get my second shot 15 days before the festival, so I'm safe.
Wow, that's pushing it.
That's pushing it, yeah. But I mean, I think it is opening up more and more, but we are careful in booking too much closer to where we are now.
Right.
So like the main, sort of say, campaign, which is a silly word, but like the tour for the record is going to start in December here in Sweden.
Okay. So
then we feel that that's safe to start booking shows then, and then going into 2022, we'll be able to visit you, for example.
So you're not falling for all these conspiracy theories, because, and this, you can relate to this. There's a big college yesterday that was on the news in Toronto that says nobody is coming into our campus without 2 vaccines, and you're hearing that about sporting events. It's really crazy. I don't know. It's part of its big brother, but it is what it is. I think that's what we all have to do.
I mean, we had the thing here in Sweden, we had the Euros, the football.
Yeah.
And a lot of Swedish people travel, for example, to Russia for that.
Right.
And now we have a small spike again surrounding the returns of those people. My son works at the hospital. He was actually watching the final together with the COVID person that had been in Russia watching the group play.
Wow.
So he it happens, that certain spikes come up, and I don't know why. It's probably like different mutations of the virus being in different places.
Yeah.
Here in Sweden, everything is pretty much open now. It's like as it was before. We can't have really big shows yet, but in December it looks good.
Just a couple more quickies for you. How has this affected your teaching?
Well, it's been a tough year. I've been working all the time. Last term, like last school year, so to say, was normal all the way through. We just had to like not go on school trips, basically. But we had the kids in the classroom the whole time. But after Christmas now, first we had full-time online teaching for like a month. And then we switched to every third week. So the 7th grader would be in 1 week. Next week was the 8th graders, and then the 9th graders. And that was a lot of stuff to juggle around. Online teaching is hard for the students, and we have to be, we are the adults, we have to be flexible,
right?
And it is challenging. I was super tired after that term. It took its toll, but the students went out with good grades. So I'm happy.
The last thing I want to ask you kind of relates to my t-shirt. If you can see it, you can only trust yourself. And I like the 4th Entombed record as well. But what do you think? The whole LG thing is the most, I'm a fucking major fan, and I was fortunate enough to meet and drink with him a lot. And that was just beyond devastating.
Yeah, it was horrible. It's why his death affected me so much. I mean, I've had close friends / musicians die before on me. Of course, Jan from Dissection, Jesse from Napalm, Mieszko from Nausum, Henke from Dysphere, my bandmate, and so on. Passing, all sad, of course. But I think the thing with LG is that I knew him since 1986.
Right.
And he was exactly as old as I am, come from the same background all the way. It's a lot of similarities, which really makes it like the first one of my people, so to say, to pass in such a tragic way. And the fact is, like, also that he was so, what do you call it? Like, he was still being in contact with people up to the very last as well, which is, it's tough when you think about it. Like, he was calling and texting and stuff like that up until the very end, trying to reach everybody.
Right.
So a great person has left us, and also like one of the best frontmen in death metal for sure, in metal in general, I have to say. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Let's just put it on a high note. Congratulations with this fantastic album. Can't wait to get the hard copy. You got my orders in and all that. What do you think about the the 100 different colors of vinyl and all this other stuff that fans just have to have.
I mean, I'm a record collector myself, but I only need like one version of a record. You know, I mean, that's how far as I go. You know, well, of course, if I have like an original, like 80s record or whatever, and they release a box set now or something, maybe I'll get that one too. But you know,
Right.
but of course, the ultimate version for me is at the gates is like the art book one, because then you have all the music and you also have all the artwork. So I would go for that one, but otherwise, which color and such? I mean, all the vinyl sounds the same, which is good.
Yeah, right. Anyway, so nice to see you. I can't wait to see you in person when you get to Toronto. All the best with this rollout, and I don't know, keep the horns high.
Yeah, definitely will, man. Thank you much, and looking forward to seeing you as well, man.
Absolutely.
It was nice seeing you like this, though.
Yes. Perfect. You take care. Okay.